Hi guys, it's Rampant FM, and today we're going to do something a wee bit different. We're going to be looking at tactics, and I'm going to show you how to basically set up a tactic. And we've just joined Hibs. I'm going to pretty much go through what my process is on how I sort of evaluate tactics. There's specific roles that I like using, advanced forward being one of them, and wingers rather than inside forwards or anything like that. And the reason being is because I know it's quite tempting to play players in their best roles, but I'm totally against that. And the reason being is because you want to decide how you're going to play and what roles you need to sort of see what roles are best on how you play. We're going to be going through a different options here. Deep lying playmaker is actually quite fine. But yeah, there's a few things that I just think people that I've even seen play for a long time, fundamentally, their tactics aren't as good as they could be. And the way we're going to play, you'll see that sort of the likes of Ryan Porteous is a good no nonsense centre back. But if I'm trying to keep possession, there's no point of me playing him in that position despite it being his best because he's just going to boot the ball out to row Z. Yeah, this is pretty much how I sort of set my team up. I always like the 4-2-3-1. I think it's decent. Always like high intensity. Yeah, I'm just going to change these to support roles rather than attacking roles. But we'll go through everything. We'll go through why I've set it up this way and whatnot. This is just me sort of setting it up for what I'm about to do next, if that makes sense. It's pretty much what I usually go with, which is 4-2-3-1 is a decent formation to play, quite safe. I think Hibs play a 4-2-3-1 anyway. I just done another quick pick there to make sure I've got the best players in positions, if you will. But you'll see that there is a few sort of 3-star ratings, and there's players that can maybe be wee bit higher up in different roles. But again, it's how you want to play, and don't just sort of pick roles because the player wants to play that way. As I said about the no nonsense centre back, there's no point of playing that if you're trying to keep possession. We're going to go with a fairly narrow. We're going to run at defence. Tempo is fine, really decent tempo. I like with low crosses. I don't think Kevin Nisbet's that tall. So in transition, counter press is fine in counter because that's exactly what we want to do. I like distributing to the fullbacks rather than the centre backs, even though I will be playing them as ball playing and out of position. I want that defensive line to be much higher. We'll play an offside trap and we'll get stuck in because we want to be playing that counter press effectively. And the reason we play a much higher line defensively is because if that was really low, then I would not be pressing from a decent position. And this is what I'm talking about in terms of people. Some of their tactics just don't make sense in terms of what they're trying to do. It also comes into roles and whatever. And another thing is player instructions. I always use quite a lot of player instructions. A lot of people might just use the ones that are kind of set from the role. I always do take fewer risks, and I tell you why. It's because if I'm trying to keep possession and dominate possession, if players take fewer risks, that means that they are going to stick to playing that short possession game, and that's why I do that with most of my players. In terms of Jamie Murphy, actually, instructions are fine. Actually, it's not too bad. You could maybe have him. I think shoot more. His shooting's not that bad actually, but yeah, take fewer risks, so he will short pass more. I'm not too bothered about crosses. One thing you could probably do is maybe tackle harder if you are trying to win possession. But yeah, player instructions for me are a big thing in the game, and a lot of people just ignore them. I'm quite happy with what that is in terms of what he's got already, because I mean it does suit the role that I'm trying to play. So, and that's why I'm playing that role because again they do set things. Always, if you're looking at this, always just look at the advice and what it says, what things do, and it will tell you if there is conflicts. I think there will be conflicts of what the player does normally. We can get him to get further forward, which we could do. I mean, he's in a support role at the moment, so it doesn't make much sense to do that. And we'll look at Shadow Striker. So again, we could probably maybe have shoot more often if he's good at shooting. I don't think Scott Allen's that bad. I don't think he's the best shooter. We maybe want him to have a bit of a free roll so we can have him roam from position, basically get him into sort of better areas. But yeah, it's kind of I would tend to do that with a shadow striker that he can roam. It's not a massive deal. One thing I actually forgot to change is I always go attacking. It sort of raises the intensity a wee bit. I like a really intense game, and you'll see that this is sort of conflicting with Joe Newell's traits, if you will. So you can actually sort of change this if you want to. It goes against it, but you can, through sort of individual training, you can get them adjusted to the roles, and I'm going to show you how to do that as well because it's something I use. I don't put a lot of emphasis on training. I know a lot of people disagree that I don't think training's the be all and end all, and I think the most important thing is your formation and your tactics and your player roles. People might disagree. Training comes into it individually, but in terms of team cohesion, fitness, all this sort of stuff, a lot of that is adapted through time, and it's the same with trying to players trying to learn new positions and stuff. It comes through time, and that's why I don't think overall training, in terms of general the team training, matters as much to me. I mean, I'm a guy that's sort of kind of well known for doing really well in sort of competitive games, network saves, and I don't really put on a lot of emphasis on training. But it's totally up to you guys if you have your own schedules and stuff like that. But I don't honestly think it's that important compared to other content creators. And to be honest, if I'm completely honest, I do better than them. So I'm not saying I know better, but I find my methods a lot better than some other content creators I've seen. But yeah, individual player instructions, everyone should have them, certainly. Yeah, look at them, go through them, you'll get better results. But yeah, always, oh yeah, I forgot to put overlaps on actually. It's something I want to do using wingbacks. And yeah, you change it to slightly shorter passing if you're trying to play that possession game. But also counter press is what I like to do as well. So need to get the intensity up. Take short kicks. It doesn't really matter. Again, if you're playing a possession game, it wouldn't make sense for you to take longer free kicks or longer. The familiarity is another thing that I was saying. That sort of develops through time, through training. Yes, general training can help with these certain things, but again, it's over time. You're not going to develop this. Yeah, that's one thing that people won't tell you. One thing I do, and is use units, and I want them to start training in the positions I want them at, basically. So Kevin Nisbet is an advanced forward. He's probably better as a poacher, but I'm not going to be using him as a poacher. I'm going to be using him as an advanced forward. So I want him as an advanced forward. So I'm going to change a couple of the guys to what I want them to play as and what they're sort of more familiar with. And I'll show you. And this sort of helps me out. Sweeper keeper is what I use. I think I've went defend. Yeah. Always make sure. I think if you just put player in playing position, it helps as well. I do believe there are individual sort of general training things that help with that. But if they're playing in the position and in the role, they will effectively get better with time. Again, as I said, time, familiarity, team cohesion, stuff like that. It's through time. I don't think there's one. I might be wrong, but there's not a training schedule that instant gives you these things any quicker in terms of like really fast. I might be wrong about that, but in my experience, they're not. They always sort of develop gradually. So that's why, as I said, training is not a big deal to me. And Ryan Porteous, as I mentioned, the roles thing, get your roles correct. Read what it says at the bottom, description, how you want to. It's like in real football. I would not want Ryan Porteous as a no nonsense player booting the ball into row Z. Like I said, I want to keep possession. I want him ball playing. Take fewer risks is a good one to keep possession in terms of your short passing. I mean, stats come into it as well, but we'll get into that more as well. But yeah, just have a look around the attributes. The player traits are good. So we might, as I said, I think I mentioned this earlier, but we might want him shooting more often because his shooting's kind of half decent. Crosses don't really matter in terms of. I mean, they do. You can add that if you want, but I think sort of mixed crosses in terms of player instructions is probably the best thing. But low crosses, I quite like low crosses depending on the player's height. If I was playing more of a sort of poacher target man, which I believe Kevin Nisbet is kind of a poacher. I think that's his best role. But again, I like advanced forward, so I'm playing him an advanced forward, and he'll be playing as an advanced forward. But But yeah, look over everything. That's my one advice. Definitely add player instructions. As I said, take fewer risks is a really good way to get that short passing up, and it shows you obviously that in terms of the passing directness, it is now under shorter passing. But tackle harder is good for if you are playing a pressing game as well. Definitely, you can ease off tackles if you're a wee bit worried. I always have get stuck in. I get quite a lot of sort of fouls, but it doesn't bother me as long as I'm not getting too many cards. So yeah, mark. You can, the good thing about that is you can actually mark specific positions. If you're an AM, you might want to mark the DM because he might be marking you. Basically, what I tend to find if you're marking specific players, for example, if you're an attacking right midfielder and you're marking the left back, you can win the ball off them because you're pressing them, you're putting them under pressure. It would just be like that in real life as well. So that's that. I think someone mentioned it in FM20, but I have noticed that myself that seems to work quite well, and it's something I have used in the past to win games. Basically, I mean the best roles I've literally got maybe three players that can play where I want them to, in their best roles. But yeah, change all of these by the way. I mean I only done a few of them just for the to save the runtime of this video. But yeah, this certainly helps me. Always do the ones that you're obviously playing. If they do tend to play in different positions, for example, you might midfielders might play a deep line playmaker to a mez. You obviously you might just want to say play in position rather than changing it. Sometimes it's funny with wing backs too because wing backs can can switch. Some can play left or right. Um, so yeah, but that's a wee trick I use to get them better familiar with the roles that they're playing. Uh, and the good thing about this is you can actually. I'm just going to change this back. So the highlighted sort of attributes is what makes them good or better at that role. So it's good to actually go into individual training and see this. I'm just going to pick someone. I think Kevin Nisbet to see what he's like at advanced. So he needs better dribbling, passing, and technique. I would say so. Let's get him on attack. Yeah, it's the wrong one. It's not attacking movement. He's actually good. I think it's the final third actually. So yeah, there's a couple of things in there with final third that he will improve on, and that sort of helps with the roles as well. It's the sort of stuff that you want to be looking at because it makes you a better FM player, but also makes you a better manager and your better chance of success. If you add more sort of intensity level, always sort of look. It tells you obviously at the bottom right there in terms of their injury. You might get more injuries, but if you've got a decent squad depth, then I think it's justifiable that if you're doing well. Um, First touch isn't great. Vision. The thing that worries me about that is I think passing. So we're going to work on his passing. I think that's still quite low for um, a ball playing defender is what I've got, and I'm going to put double intensity. Overall risk of injuries is increased, obviously, but again, it's a risk I'm willing to take to have them playing football in the way I want them to. I think, as I mentioned, too many people make the mistake of just playing them in the best position, but the roles don't actually fit on what they're trying to do. Always do free formations. Always load them, even if it's similar or something that you're not going to really use. People tend to panic in games. I've seen it in competitive games where they don't load their secondary or third formation. They tend to change the roles in the first, and it kind of ruins it. Um, and 9 times out of 10 they will get beat from a losing position, or they won't do any better in a game unless they're obviously a decent team. So always have that second and third formation loaded, good to go if things aren't working well in a game, even if it's similar if things aren't working. But don't ever start changing roles and moving players. And I see it so many times with content creators that do that, and it just doesn't work the majority of the time. I would have opposition instructions during a game as well, and also it builds familiarity with the if you have free sort of formations loaded, and it kind of helps you out if you want to change things up. So always have the free loaded. That's probably another bit of advice that I would say. Don't ever just like chuck everything forward in a game. Have your secondary or third formation loaded so you can change. Yeah, that's pretty much covered tactics. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video. It's something a wee bit different. I know people have wanted me to do one of these for a while, so sort of happy to oblige. Thank you for all the likes and subscriptions. Look, I really appreciate it, and we'll be back soon.